Good evening, everyone. It's the Activated One, New Brighton, the Futuritarian. And first and foremost, I want to say peace to the universe. Now, this video is going to be on the reason why there's still physical paper cash money still being circulated. Now, the reason why that they haven't switched to the cryptocurrency at this point is because they had to figure out how to keep this digital currency circulating within the neighborhoods and the street systems of the so-called black race. So now that they're figuring that out, and one way they figured it out was through the Cash App. Cash App's one of them. You got multiple ones out here now, and you're going to have more as they come. As you start to see the change go away, and then you're going to start to see the dollars go away, and so forth. And see, that's one reason why they still have cash flowing around. Because when you look at the criminal system and how that is designed on the police, when you're dealing with the police back in the day was funded by the corporations. They were first out here to protect the agendas of the corporations. That's where you get the word police. There were policy enforcers enforcing the policies. So now, when you're dealing with the penitentiaries, the county, the jail systems, they have to figure out a way where people that are in the streets and they still want to be a menace to society and not elevate their minds, they had to figure out a way where they had to put the cryptocurrency a way where you can still make these illegal transactions in the streets. The reason why they do that is because they still will have the jails. The jails will still be packed. So now, as time goes forward, you're going to see everything slowly dissipate and evaporate when it comes to the physical aspect of currency circulating. And that's where they're coming with the change shortage, because the change is going to the banks, but the banks ain't sending the change back out. And you have to look at who runs the banking system. Now, when you see the symbol of a dollar sign, the symbol of a dollar sign is nothing but a snake. It's a serpent. It's a snake. And they made that the symbol. And on this picture right here, you don't see the two linear paths in it. You only see one, but they had two because that represents the intel that they were been receiving. That represents the antennas when they had the two linear lines going through the S, which the S represents the snake, just like the World Trade Centers. The World Trade Centers was two buildings. So you had the World Trade Centers. What was the World Trade Centers doing? To the mass majority of the people, the only thing that they thought the World Trade Centers was doing was trading and marketing with the world's other countries. But it was more than that. So that's why they had the two. That's why they have the two lines going through the dollar sign, because it just represented the serpent, and it also represented the intel, the antennas. And when you're dealing with the police definitely should be took off the streets. They need to put the sheriffs back on the streets. Well, they ain't gonna put the sheriffs back on the streets. We will put the sheriffs back on the streets. The sheriffs. One thing about the sheriffs, you notice how calm they are. I'm not talking about the county sheriffs. I'm not talking about the ones that police their area. I'm not talking about those sheriffs. I'm not talking about the ones when you go to certain outskirt counties and the sheriffs, because they don't have a police force out there. The sheriffs have to police their own neighborhood. I'm not talking about those sheriffs. I'm talking about the ones in the inner city. You notice how calm they are? They get into an altercation. They're calm. Because they've been trained that way. It's how you train. It's how you train law enforcement. See, because if you train law enforcement a certain way, they're going to act that certain way, and they're going to act on that, especially if they act on an emotion. See, when you're dealing with these police officers that's out here, the ones that's carrying out these certain agendas. All right, go look at that movie. The movie just came out, and what was so funny about this movie, I was sitting. It was like 3 days ago before this movie came out on Netflix. I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, like, I said, man, I bet you these certain groups is rigging this stuff where they're filming stuff and they're carrying out certain acts was sort of like Hollywood, and they put it on the internet for an agenda, like two people dressed up as police officers beating somebody up, right? Send it out to the internet, and then people see it and they be like, oh, the police ain't this and that, because there are some crooked police officers out there, don't get me wrong. But the training also has to play a factor the way that they're trained. So when you're dealing with the sheriffs and the sheriffs, they're calm. The sheriffs, the sheriffs, see, because we don't support the police organization. Because the reason why I say that, because there's some good police officers out there, don't get me wrong. The reason why I say that is because a lot of the police um, corporations, because police is nothing but a service. You got to understand, in some states, when you call the police, you actually have to pay for that. That phone call is being paid for. And if you're a renter and you rent, the landlord has to pay for those police calls. So that's why a lot of people get evicted in certain states when they get so many police calls, because their landlord automatically gets informed about the police calls, because he has to pay for those. He has to pay for the police calls. But dealing with this cryptocurrency, and that's the reason why the cash money is still being circulated right now, because they had to figure out a way where these thugs and these gangbangers and people that want to do stuff illegally, they had to figure out a way how they can transfer their illegal stuff illegally. So I'm sorry, my phone's ringing right now. Just give me one sec. But that is the reason why money's still circulating, because they haven't figured it out where it can get on a massive scale. Because everything on a massive scale, you got to question. And if you don't, that just means that you're not in the future. You're not activated. So when you're dealing with these police officers, and there's some that have been under hypnosis. There's some that allegedly went to these lounges, and they put them under hypnosis. They put them under hypnosis to carry out an agenda. So when that happens, when they carry out their agenda, they snap out of hypnosis. And you notice one thing about these incidents: when something big like this happens, you notice they never showed a police officer after the incident. They showed a police officer after the incident, but they show them, I'm talking about instantly after the incident. So say like a police officer killed somebody, right? You never see the facial expression of the police that just killed somebody. You always see his expression, maybe 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you'll see the police expression. They'll be talking to him, and or they'll be showing just his body cam, but they won't show his face. They do that for a reason, especially the ones that cause riots. Because everybody has to be activated. You're either going to be activated through the beast, or you're going to be activated through one of us. It's just that simple. because the beast can activate you too, because they can't make you do anything. They can't go out here and make you be menace to society, make you loot, make you ride. They have to activate you to do it. And they've been doing a real good job on that. Been doing a real good job. So now they're figuring out how, because what's going to happen is, and people are doing it with Cash App right now. They're doing it with other apps. So, they do their little transaction. They it's all going to be phone. Everything's going to be in your phone. See, these phones are none but artificial life recorders. That's all these phones are. They're communicators and artificial life recorders. Because when stuff shift, when everything takes that full shift, your phone is going to reveal your whole life history. That's one of the reasons why 5G had to get put out. And one thing about me, I don't even want to say me. One thing about, I don't like me or I or none of that. I'm starting to cut down on those words. One thing about us is nobody never said that we was perfect. When you hear me at the beginning of my videos, I don't come on there and say, "Hey, it's the perfect one, new bright." No, nobody's perfect. Look at the people that's in power right now. Are they perfect? They ain't perfect, but they still in power though. See, because it's never been about that. It's never been about that. And see, that's the thing about dealing with this cryptocurrency and all this stuff that they've been pushing. They've been pushing all this stuff for a reason. Dealing with the cash money aspect of it. The cash money aspect of it, because everything has to be going to a cyber type circulation. And the 5G, when you're dealing with this 5G and your kids being home from school, some kids are still in school, but it was a test run to see how many of these computers that they can get up and running at the same time without the system crashing and uploading and keeping everybody running currently, because that's where it's going. It's going to like the Star Trek age. When you used to watch Star Trek, everybody had their little communicators in their hand, this and that. So the 5G is also a test run dealing with the new technology that's going to be being presented soon. That's one of the reasons why your kids are at school right now. Your children and your kids. They're not in school right now because the maximum frequency was being pushed to test the 5G to see. They actually wanted everybody at home for a long period of time. And when the first shutdown happened, when wasn't nothing open but Walmart, Cub Foods, and Menards, that was a test. They wanted everybody at home because they wanted to run this 5G at the maximum capacity to see how these servers will act. Because they want, like I said, they want your phone's going to be your life recorder. But even dealing with people in general, everybody is not perfect. Nobody said they was perfect. Your whole goal is to get activated, is to get your mind moving real fast. Mind moving at multiple hertz, over 144 hertz. That's just the start. It can move over that. That's why in the book of Revelations, when it said the 144,000, it was all codes. The whole Bible is codes. A lot of these books are codes. Shoot, the languages have codes in them. Not just the English language. There's other languages that have codes in them that can be decoded, speaking through a different stealth communication system, the coded system. So when you're dealing with this cryptocurrency, they just have to make sure they want to make sure, especially in the so-called black race, they want to make sure that the ones that are in the streets, the ones that are running the streets, they want to make sure they can still do their transactions, because it's not going to be about the cryptocurrency. It's going to be about whatever you get caught with, to keep the jail system packed, to keep the families broke up, to keep you, that they make sure that you can still be a menace to society. That's why the dollars is still circulating, because they didn't come to the full fledged of the moving currency through the world web. The world web, which is the world web, is the artificial grid. That's why at first they called it the web, then they moved it to the Ethernet. They switched it to the Ethernet. But when it first came out, what was it called? The web. That cryptocurrency. And like I said, the first thing that's going to go, the change shortage. And it's not a shortage, it's just that the change ain't being recirculated. That's all the shortage means. It's a lack of recirculation. So when they get to the banks, all they're doing is melting the change, separate each element out the change, and making bricks out of them to use them for something else in the future. And then the paper is going to be next. But that's what this symbol means. It's a serpent. That symbol is a serpent. They got the serpent on majority of all the currency. You will see this symbol. It's a serpent symbol with the two linears in it. That represents the intel. The intel, just like the Twin Towers, that represented the intel. Like I said in my last video, when they failed, that was a sign that their intel slowly being cut off. So who's going to pick up that intel next on the planet? Dealing with, like I said, the police. They were the corporation enforcers. They enforced it. They enforced it when you wasn't moving the currency right, or you fell into debt. The police was the enforcers back in the day to, make sure that you would either recompensate through your house, or if you had land, or that's what the police, they were enforcing the corporation laws. Police, policy enforcers. Policy enforcers. But who was, remember when you look back at those old Western movies and you remember the sheriffs that were in the towns? The old sheriff, there was no police. The sheriffs, they got that from us, the sheriffs. There wasn't no police in the town. You notice when you watch the old Western shows, how the sheriff was looking at everything logical, wasn't too emotional, would talk to you. That's how the police was supposed to be. And even when you go, I'm talking about in the city, I'm not talking about in the suburbs. When you mess with the sheriff, or you encounter a sheriff in the suburbs, notice how calm they are. If they get into an altercation with somebody, they're calm, they're collected, because they train them that way. The police is trained somewhat a little bit different than the sheriffs for a reason. You know why? Because the police is interacting with so-called black people. That's why they train them a different way, because they want to have the submental push in these neighborhoods with the separation of the super degeneracy of all these narcotics and all these drugs being pushed in the hood, so you can have the separation factor, the jealousy factor, all that stuff that's gonna downsize the mental evolution of your children. They know what they've been doing. So that's the reason why money, physical money currency, is still being circulated, because they're making Cash App's one of them. So these thugs and these gangbangers, they're still going to be able to do their transactions, but it's all going to be through the Ethernet, which is the World Web. It's the activated one. New Bright 10, the Futuritarian. Peace to the universe.